Yep, we can see it.
Okay, well, we will just get started, I guess. So I am Russell Shoemaker. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions. I specifically work with transfer students here at CCS, and we have a wonderful group of either current or alumni transfer students here to talk with us. So first of all, I'd like you all to introduce yourself. I guess I should say I was a transfer student as well. I didn't go to CCS, but I know how that whole I know that whole transferring process can be really difficult and kind of confusing. So that's why I like working with transfer students. But Cody, you want to start with you?
Sure. Hi, I'm Cody. I graduated CCS in 2018. I was also a transfer student. And I currently primarily work in TV animation, doing background design and paint, and color design and prop design and a little bit of everything. And when I'm not doing that, I freelance doing tabletop board game design, like designing like the actual game board. And yeah, I've worked at a bunch of different studios, from Cartoon Network, Titmouse, Bento Box, so many. I'm starting to lose count, which is a good thing. And yeah, also have done work for like Marvel and DC and Warner Brothers and a lot of cool stuff.
And you're based in Atlanta, is that right? Did you say that? Did I miss that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm originally from Detroit, in Michigan, so CCS was right next door pretty much. But currently in Atlanta, Georgia.
And what school did you transfer from in Detroit?
So I started at Henry Ford College.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I changed my major I think 4 times. So when I left there, I left with like a bunch of different degrees and stuff. And then ended up at CCS. Yeah,
Nice.
I don't know if we're trying to deep
No,
dive
that's
on
good.
that or if this is just intros.
That's perfect. Yeah. Who wants to go next? We'll go. And Beck, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, hi, I'm Beck. It's good to know that we're all animation people for the transfer reps we got going on here. I'm a junior in animation now. I transferred from Michigan Tech, so entirely different vibe. Was not an art student, very much a change of pace. Changed my major a couple times before coming here in like, what year was it? 2021. Yeah. So
Nice.
it's been a while, but we're having a good time.
What made you change from tech to animation? Was there like a moment?
I when I started out in chemical engineering, and then I switched to computer science, and was not having a good time in computer science over the pandemic. So, shock and surprise, it's really easy to put programming on all Zoom classes, and I do not have a good time with those. And I was talking to both, like, I had an art minor there, which is a dumb thing to do at Michigan Tech. And I was talking to my professor, and they were like, you are way more excited to talk about art than you are any of your programming stuff. Like, maybe you should think about that a little bit. And I did, and now we're here.
Nice.
On a whim, just to be like, maybe I'll get in. And then was like, no, we're doing this now.
This is happening. I had like kind of a similar thing to you, Buck. I was like, I really wanted to go into biology, and originally went to a state school, and then I was like, I can't, my brain doesn't work this way. I'm just like into, I guess, like the idea of science or something like that. And then I dropped out, went to a community college and found art. So cool. All right, Fletcher, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Fletch. I'm also a third year in the animation program in entertainment arts. I am a first year experience leader, so I help out like new students, and I'm a student ambassador, so I give tours of the school. And I transferred from a little community college up north called Delta College, where I got my associates in art and design. I kind of knew I was going to do art the whole time, but I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go yet, so I thought I would save some money by doing community college first and making my time at the next school a little easier. So, yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, I'll ask you some more questions later about that specifically. Olivia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not a transfer student. I am a CCS alum. I'm Olivia Izinga, one of the assistant directors of admissions here at CCS. So I work with first-time freshmen from Michigan and but not transfer students. I graduated from photography in 2016.
Very
And if
cool.
anybody has, and I'll be like helping out with the chat and everything. So if anybody has questions, then put them in the chat and I'll probably be able to answer them for you.
Yeah, I can't see the chat, so thank you so much for doing that. So I'm going to go over just some like a timeline of stuff to consider when you apply to CCS, because transferring is always like a very difficult process. And then we'll get back to our panel here and we can ask them some questions. So if you think of any questions for the panel while I'm going through all this stuff, write it down and we will definitely get to it. So I think it's important to note that like transferring is a much different process than simply like applying to a school for your first time. So definitely, I think allot yourself more time to really just go through that transfer process. I'm gonna, lay out some steps here for you. And I really think it's helpful to approach applying to the school as like a step-by-step process, because it is like, it keeps you on track, I think. All right, so there is the pre-application step, which I think is like scheduling a one-on-one virtual appointment with myself, or maybe even another counselor. I'm probably the best one to go to, just because I handle all the transcripts. But if you just want to talk portfolio, anybody, Olivia will be happy to meet with you, but any one of our other counselors will be happy to meet with you as well. But really do get used to taking the initiative throughout this process, because there's going to be a lot of times when you're going to be completely on your own and you may have questions and there may be like some mysterious things that happen and you might want to know why, and just get used to like asking. So like I said, I have 15 to 30 minute appointments that you can book online. That's really like the best way to get a hold of me, because I don't work directly in Detroit and I'm frequently traveling. So getting me on the phone can be difficult sometimes. So it's really best to book an appointment with me. All right. The next step is to apply. I think probably a few of you have already done this. It's like probably the easiest part of the whole process. Try to apply by November 1st for winter or March 1st for fall. You don't have to, you can follow the traditional like freshman path if you want to, which is December 1st or January 1st. You can even apply after March 1st, but really it's to your benefit as a transfer student to try to apply by these deadlines. This is kind of like the best time to get your applications fully in. The online application is free. It's really simple. It takes about 30 minutes. There's nothing like tricky in there. You don't have to submit an artist statement or submit any letters of recommendation. Very simple. It's just your basic information. The next thing is a little bit more tricky. It's got a very similar kind of like due by time, which is, around the same times I mentioned. Most of your transcripts can be sent through Student Clearinghouse or Parchment. But if you don't know what your school uses, you may want to Google the name of your school plus request transcript. That's usually like a really easy way to find how your school sends out transcripts. And it's important to note that we do need transcripts from every college that you've attended. And if you've taken a lot of AP courses, you probably also want to go to the College Board and submit a transcript for AP as well. We want to get you as much credit as possible. So we want to look at every opportunity for credit. And sometimes you'll see like, it may be like on one of your transcripts, there are a couple of classes that transferred over from that previous institution and they're listed on your new transcript, but often they don't give any details. So we don't really know what to transfer and how it transfers into our program. So that's why we want to get a transcript from every school. Unofficial transcripts are also totally acceptable. These can be screenshots from your student portal. Just make sure all the details that you would normally see on a transcript are on there, like your grades, the name of the class, the class code, and the semester that you took it. You can also just take a photograph if you have like a copy of your transcripts from an institution. That will totally work. Once you're admitted to the school, we do ask for official ones though. So just keep that in mind. The next step is submitting your portfolio, same sort of like target deadline. We need 5 to 12 examples of your best work. I think the website says 5 to 8, but you can submit up to 12 on SlideRoom. So if you have taken a lot of classes at a community college or another college, specifically in art, you may want to submit a little bit more. Also, include descriptions about the pieces that you've made, especially if they do come from a certain class assignment. That's really helpful for us when we're determining how to give you transfer credit. And if you've gone to like more classes than just a few, you may need more space to submit more work. And it's totally fine to just send me a Google Drive folder with a bunch of your work. Just make sure that it's organized by the class that it came from, or if it's personal work, make sure that it's in a folder for personal work. So just keep it really organized so that I know what's going on there. And be sure to give us sharing permission, just in case I need to share it with any faculty members. The next thing is a little bit complicated. It's submitting your FAFSA. You may, depending on your age, have to get your parents involved. Oops, I just skipped by that. I'm so sorry. I'm getting back there. There we go. So it's available now if you are applying for the winter. So I would go into the FAFSA and update it to include CCS as a potential school. You can use our school code. It's 006671. Very easy to find if you don't write it down now. But for next fall, if you're applying for next fall, I believe the application is opening sometime in December, and it's going to be a new application. So just expect some hiccups there because they're totally revamping that whole system. All right, so after you are hopefully admitted to the college, you will receive a transfer credit evaluation, which goes through all the transcripts and, picks out the classes that we can transfer into the program. Sometimes we have to ask for additional work if we don't see work from a particular class. If you have any questions about that, once again, just make an appointment with me. And you'll also receive your financial aid. But if you are missing credits, if you're worried about a credit that maybe didn't transfer over, if you're worried that even after you receive your merit scholarship, your FAFSA, any sort of grants you're eligible for, that you still can't afford the school, once again, take the initiative to reach out to us. There are a lot of ways we can help you. So don't just disappear during this process. You want to make sure that you come back and say, hey, Russell, like I can't quite afford this. Like, are there any other options for us? And sometimes there are things we can do for you. So that's why I say don't just disappear. Definitely reach out to us. And then if it is a transcript question, I can usually figure out what the issue is and let you know. And there is every now and then, sometimes we just overlook something. So it's possible that we made a mistake too. All right, then after all that, it is time to deposit and register for classes. At this point, you will no longer have to deal with me. We will assign you an academic advisor. You'll be able to register for classes with their help. So you're not totally on your own there. And just keep in mind that you want to make sure that everything is kind of wrapped up before you place your tuition deposit, or close to being wrapped up. It doesn't have to be perfect because the tuition deposits are non-refundable. So if you're paying for college yourself, like that can be, a chunk of change that you are suddenly missing if you decide that, oh, actually, I can't come this semester. So that's why I say, like, try to go through these step by step. It's usually like the best way to get through it. All right, and that brings us to the transfer panel. So that was pretty much it. I don't know if there are any questions while I was talking. I'll stop sharing my screen here.
Nope, no questions in the chat. I was just putting some links in there.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we will ask our panel here some questions. And then if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. But we'll start off with an easy one. So why did you choose to transfer from your previous institution, and what was it about CCS that made you decide to go to CCS? And I don't know who wants to go first. Any takers?
I can start this
It
one.
doesn't matter.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So I came from Delta College, like I said, which is up. If you're familiar with Michigan, it's by like Midland, Saginaw, Bay Cities, like those three cities just kind of share this one community college. And I left because their art program was very much like 4 teachers teaching 12 subjects. It's like a kind of an engineering school with art tacked on the side. But as far as like foundations classes, it covered everything I needed. The reason I chose CCS specifically, I didn't actually look at many other schools because CCS has crazy good connections. Our alumni are like all over the place, actively working in their respective industries. And a lot of the teachers who are working here right now are still very prominent, or they were prominent at one point. Like one of my teachers worked on like Rocky and Bullwinkle, if you're
Oh,
familiar
cool.
with like old animation. So
Yeah.
yeah. The newest teacher we just got, my computer character animation teacher, just finished working for Disney for a couple of years. So he worked on like Moana and Zootopia and Frozen 2 and stuff. So the teachers, the faculty really know what they're doing. That's why I chose CCS personally.
Cool. That's a great answer. All right. Who wants to go next? I'll start calling on you.
I have no problem.
All right.
I can go next.
Great.
So I, like I said, originally started out at Henry Ford, in Dearborn, and had no idea what I wanted to be doing when I first started there. So changed my major 3 different times, and then left my last little bit there. I did the illustration program, so I left with an associate's degree in liberal arts, a certificate in illustration. I'm like 6 credit hours away from an associate's in psychology. And it was like kind of when I was in like the psych program there that the last couple classes I had to do were like high level math stuff, and I'm terrible at math. That and electives were like the classes I needed to be finishing up. So yeah, started taking drawing classes, and that was kind of it. And Vicky Shepard, if anyone's familiar over at Henry Ford, runs like the art program over there, and she's amazing. And she had recommended to me like CCS because I was asking about what possible options might be, and at the time I really didn't know. I was very new to like college in general after I had been there for 4 years, but yeah, Vicky definitely pointed me in CCS direction, and it all kind of happened pretty quick after that.
Nice. All right. You want to go next?
Yeah. See, I was kind of holding off on answering this mostly because I feel like my response to this is what not to do.
No, that's
Just
great.
because I kind of just Googled like art schools in Michigan one day, and CCS was the only one that didn't feel kind of fake because it's always like, oh yes, the art program attached to Michigan State or like whatever is like well received, and I was like, that sounds fake to me. That sounds like it's probably not great. That's how you end up a starving artist. And then CCS was like, oh no, this is an actual art school. And so I just applied with no real, like I put in the application with no real intention of actually finishing it. And then my mom started looking into stuff for me and was like, oh, this person from your high school like went to CCS and was pretty successful, and like look at all these other people, and like Tim Flattery is there and all of those other things. And so I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is an actual like good choice. So yeah, and then we actually went through with it.
Perfect. Well, okay, so I this one I don't think I ran by you all first, but do you feel like getting those transfer credits was helpful for you once you got to CCS? Like, do you feel like it made your semesters a little lighter, or, and you can be honest if you feel like it didn't. That's totally fine. Everybody's different.
Yeah, I can start this one. Yes and no. In a lot of ways, it was incredibly helpful. But then there were like one class specifically that I had a perspective credit transfer over, and at the time, and with like how intense CCS's like foundation perspective is, I wish I like would have taken that again at the time. But in every other regard, it was very helpful. I got to like pretty much just take all of the classes that I needed, and wasn't having to take like too many like the language courses
Yeah.
or anything like that. Like I had all that stuff already knocked out.
You focus on
Um,
your art.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar experience as well. Fletch, do you have a answer for that one? It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kind of the same boat where there are one or two classes like perspective, and I think there's a technical drawing like for film class
Mhm.
that I think would have been cool to take, but I didn't have to because my transfers. But literally, aside from those, it's been so nice because I'm only taking classes really that have to deal with my major, and so I'm just doing fun stuff and making cool things. And then like next year is when I'm really going to feel the benefits because my senior year, that's when all my electives kicked in, elective transfer credits kick in. So next year I'm only taking my senior film studio class and my professional futures class. So instead of having to worry about all the other classes that my fellow seniors are taking, I'm just worrying about like my film and doing some cool work on campus. So
That's how it was for me too.
Yeah. That's a really good point. That's something that happens a lot when you get that transfer credit evaluation back. Your first couple of years, you may have like a full class load, and you're like, "Did I get any transfer credits?" But then they start to kick in, especially like your junior and senior year, with some of those electives being wiped out. So that's really nice. Beck, how about you next? Because you came from a totally different school. Do you feel like these? Yeah. What's been your experience?
I didn't really get any of the art credits out for the obvious reasons of I didn't really take any art classes prior to coming here. Basically didn't have any of the liberal arts stuff. Which is nice because I don't want to take any of the English classes. I'm not interested in that at all. But and like same thing with Fletcher. Even my junior year was gonna be pretty empty. I've picked up a minor that I'm doing. I've got a game design minor.
Oh, cool.
Because I need to stay at full time for scholarship reasons.
Yeah.
And otherwise I wouldn't have been a full-time student. But I think like absolutely transfer credit, blessing, wonderful to not have to take those. Also a bit of a curse because it's so easy, especially since your admissions counselors aren't aware of how much work a studio class is. They'll be like, oh, you didn't have to take this liberal arts class. Let's move up this studio. You have space for it. And now you're taking 4 studio classes or maybe even 5 if you're crazy. And that's a bad time. That is a bad time. You do not have time for 4 studio classes. You barely have time for 3. So it's a really tough, it can be a tough balance to just remember like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't take that class right now, and making yourself hold off on some things just for the sake of like, because you want, especially if you're transferring, if you're anything like me, you kind of want to be out of school as fast as possible because you're over it. Like I should have graduated last year, it feels like. But you can't rush this because you're here to get better. And if you're taking a bunch of these classes all at once, you can't spend as much time on any of them, which means you're not going to get the growth that you want out of them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's a blessing and a curse, right? So like I had so many transfer credits, but I didn't get very many at the school I went to. I went to a different art and design school. And they all kind of came in for liberal arts courses. My first year was taken care of. Some of my sophomore year was taken care of. But yeah, I had to like take on a minor as well. And that was kind of like, this is a blessing and a curse. This is insane at first. But also like one thing you said like that really stuck out to me is like CCS is a really nice experience because you don't really get that like super stressful like I got to make work all the time outside of CCS. And after you're kind of done with it, you're like, oh, whoa, that was like great. Like that actually was really helpful and a really great learning experience too. But yeah, you can totally overdo it too. So I totally understand that. You got to balance it. That brings me to my next question. If nobody has any questions to ask, what was let me pick here. Let me pick.
Could I actually tack on real quick?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Just when Beck said they picked up a minor, it just reminded me. Another thing that the transfer credits really help with is it opens up your schedule to do more. So the only reason I'm a full-time student my junior year is because I was able to take a semester off last year to go work at Disney World for a little bit.
Oh wow.
So being transfer credit definitely opens up some time for a minor or more job or stuff like that.
Yeah, or like study abroad. It really frees you up to like do things.
That's my experience as well. I also took a minor illustration major, animation minor. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be pretty helpful in that way. So how do you feel like the adjustment went for you all? Because, it like CCS is like it is like Beck was saying, like it's a very, like we work really hard here, in like the best possible way, right? But it can be definitely an adjustment period when you're coming from a community college where you might have been like the hardest working artist at your school, and then all of a sudden you're surrounded by like, hundreds of other artists who are working just as hard as you or even harder. So what was that transition like for you?
Honestly, to some degree, I still feel like I'm adjusting.
Mhm.
Just because like I came from engineering school. Engineers very different from artists.
Yeah.
And like I didn't go to engineering school for no reason. So I vibe with those kind of people. It wasn't a whole like coming to CCS homecoming type feeling. There's an artist in the engineer, now there's an engineer in the artist. But yeah, it's sometimes I still feel like I'm adjusting where like it'll be just like, wow, these art people are weird. But like otherwise, I think it took me probably about a semester, half a semester, like you said, to really like I think having done the whole college thing once helped because I was like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I know what's up with this with orientation week. Here, I'll actually go to things and stuff like that because like I know that like these clubs are going to be where I really enjoy myself, or like this is going to be what makes going to school worth it. Um, and so like you kind of already know what's up, and so it might be a little faster, and it might be a little slower because you're with a bunch of people who are younger than you, and so finding your people might be a little trickier because you might not vibe with them as much at first. And so like there's give and take, but about a semester, I think.
Nice.
I would agree with that. I so many things, very similar experience as my own. Definitely pros and cons. I feel like I like that first semester is a little interesting for sure, just because it's a completely different like work ethic than some other schools might have. And it like everyone is there specifically for the same reasons. But I mean, even if it is like within departments or whatever, like we're all there to become as good at the thing that we care so much about doing. Whereas like, a community college or something like that, like someone might just be taking it like, oh, it's just an elective. It might be like an easy class or something like that, or just something for fun, which is also perfectly fine. But it's just a very different like headspace. And then, like Beck said, also like, having like being around like 4 years older than like most of my classmates and stuff. You know, some of my best friends were like just out of high school at the time. And I'm like, a grandpa trying to keep up. But I mean, it's age doesn't mean anything, and
Right.
so many things. Again, like you said, exactly, Beck. Like you're gonna get as much out of it as you put into it, and like I was the same way of like, okay, like a community college is what it is, but like this felt more exciting. Like I was very active when I was on campus. I was a student ambassador as well. um I was the like one of the representatives for student government for the illustration department for 3 of my 4 years, I think. um and was like always very active, just doing as much as I could on campus, because it was fun and I liked
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's great advice. Get immersed in whatever you can while you're here. There is a transfer group too. There's all sorts of groups at CCS, but if you do have a hard time like meeting people, that's always a good place to go, are those groups.
There is, and if you're interested, reach out because I'm the one who runs that actually.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Fletch, you have anything to add? Don't feel like you have to. We can move to the next question.
Yeah, no, most of it's been said. Honestly, it was a little bit of an adjustment. I guess the biggest adjustment for me was community college is a lot of people who like, well, I'm done with high school, so now college because that's what you do.
Yeah.
CCS, everyone's a lot more deliberate for sure. But it's kind of nice. It's a nice shift because like Delta, I felt like you were kind of just getting prepped to be capable of having a job later. Whereas now I feel like I'm sitting next to like the next Steven Spielberg's and George Lucas's and all of that jazz. So it's still very fun, but it's a lot more competitive and deadlines hit a lot harder with this school. So yeah.
It sucks when you're in it, being a couple years removed. Like it's hard. And it is a big change from like, okay, I'm gonna like, knock out this essay that I have to do in like an hour or two. Like you're spending like hours on like a single project, and that's just for one studio. But it definitely translates over to like the working world of like visual art. It is also a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
There's already been several moments though where like the deadlines they're tough, but there's been several times where I'm like, I can't get that done in a week, and then I do, and it's the greatest feeling.
It feels
like,
good.
Okay, I can do this. I might make it in the industry one day.
The passion of the people around you is also so different from other schools. It is fantastic and contagious. At least in the animation department, I can't speak for other departments, but everyone's just so dang excited about what they're doing and what they want to do and what they're working on. It's so good, and we're competitive, but I'd say competitive in a healthy way. Again, can't speak for all the departments, but like
I would agree with that.
Pushing each other.
Yeah, it's I mean, in my experience from when I was there, and again, like personally, like I wouldn't say it was necessarily competitive, but like I don't know, like there is like this feeling of like rivalry to an extent of like, oh my god, look at the stuff like my friend is doing, like I gotta step it up or whatever. Just like this endless circle of inspiring each other and like continuing to like build each other up the whole time. It's really a unique thing, I think.
And sometimes the competitiveness, I don't know if this counts as competitive, takes the form of like, wow, their film is really cool. I want to work on that. And I need to make sure that what I'm putting forward in their film is good enough to be like part of their thing.
Yeah.
Like
when I mention competitiveness, and I'm so sorry if I interrupted. When I mention competition, it's not like standard football competition where it's like it's me against that guy. I need to beat that guy. It's more like, dang, that guy made something really cool. But like if he did it, I know it's possible because someone did it. So it's like, I guess inspiration's a better word for it. It's inspiring some of the people you're around.
Yeah. We all push each other. I think that's what it is. It's like we just all push each other and want to be better.
I love that because I often tell students that when I like prospective students that I meet with in my office, the exact same thing. Cause they're like, oh, like the quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And just like, oh, you shouldn't compare yourself to others. And I'm like, actually, that's how I got better. I mean, I wasn't a transfer student, but in sophomore year, I was probably the best student in my AP art class in high school, and I slacked off a little in college. And then it was like, oh, everybody else is way better than me. I don't want crappy grades, and I also want to be better than them at X, Y, or Z. So I'm going to do that. And in areas that I wanted to. So yeah, comparison, regardless of where you're at, use it as motivation.
Comparing's okay. Pitting yourself against other people isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to use it in the right way.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like we're all creative, right? So we can get very easily lost in our ideas and like our dreams and stuff like that. And sometimes you need that fact check, right? You need to see somebody doing it better than you to be like, oh no, I really have to like take what I have in my brain and like rein it in and like figure out how to use this as something that it can be given to someone else in the world. So if that makes any sense, I know I'm kind of talking about, so I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so
no,
great to hear you do that.
I think you're right, like hitting the nail on the head there. Because it is also like a mindset that like very much transfers to like the working world of like I mean, especially in animation, like it might seem big and flashy, but like everyone knows everyone, and like it's pretty small, and like just seeing the stuff that like your peers and contemporaries are making, it's like, oh man, if I want to, exactly like you said, Beck, like even with student films, like it's very much the same of like I want to be working with these people and like alongside these people. I gotta, you know, here's
Mhm.
what I need to be doing to kind of see that happen. Um, it's stressful at times for sure, but it's also what makes us like as creatives like continue to
Mhm.
grow and try new things and just get better.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. So I'm gonna bring another question up, and then we'll try to wrap up here. Do we have any questions from anyone else so far,
Nothing in the
Olivia?
chat.
Okay,
Nope,
that's
nothing in the
totally
chat.
fine. So what resources did you find yourself? We've already talked about like student groups, but when you were either when you first transferred or maybe soon after, what resources at CCS did you find yourself using the most?
That's a good question.
Very broad question.
I don't know specifically like if I can pinpoint like one specific resource other than like, you know, having those years of experience behind me
Mhm.
already, and like being more very focused on like, okay, this is what I know I want to do, how do I make it happen? And just like going in like with this mindset and like putting that out there and like talking to my instructors and like
Mhm.
making some of like the best mentors anyone could ask for, and like mentors and like friends now,
Hmm.
colleagues that like I still talk to regularly, and like
That's totally a resource.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
like for me, like that is the biggest one, was just like talking and like trying to like soak in as much as I could while I was there. Because you know, like Fletch and Beck, and I'm sure everyone else has said too, like um you know, the instructors are industry professionals, like whether
Mhm.
they're still actively working or, you know, kind of part-time doing that while also teaching, like um they definitely know what they're talking about, and are, again, most of the times like in the trenches with the rest of us. So you're getting a lot of like very immediate firsthand knowledge.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, I can't say that I use too many like on-campus resources. The main one I made use of is I requested disability accommodations for the first time
Mhm.
ever, and those made a huge difference.
That's a good one.
So
Yeah.
reaching out to Dan Long. But honestly, I didn't know of a lot of the resources on campus that I do now, because unfortunately, and we're working on changing this, but transfer students kind of tend to fall through like the cracks in their first like
Mhm.
semester or whatever. Because they're not really required to take like a first year experience class, and like orientation isn't really targeted towards them, and so it just becomes like this weird gray area of like other people know about these but you don't.
Mhm.
And so you don't necessarily know where to go, and you figure it out eventually, especially because you have that prior experience. You can figure it out a little easier on your own, but you are kind of left to your own devices to a degree. But those years of knowing, like, oh yeah, it is okay to reach out to your professors, and like it is okay to reach out to like people higher up to figure things out, has been was definitely very beneficial. And um, I did have external resources I was relying on. Like I talked to my family a lot, who gave me a lot of
Mhm.
advice of being like, it's your first year. You give it time. You're doing
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so that's a good point. The first year experience, we do have one for transfer students now, but we usually recommend that students take it. And I would say, like, if you do see that as a class, your first semester at CCS, please take it. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are things that you're just never going to find otherwise. It's only one credit. It's like a pretty much an easy A as long as you show up. But it's really there to help you out. And I think it's like once a week. So
Yeah.
definitely go to that.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
I would have loved
Yeah.
something like that,
me
honestly.
too.
I'm an FYE instructor, same as Fletcher,
Mhm.
and honestly, I learn things from it every week, I swear. And this is my third year here, and I'm an RA. You'd think I would know all these things already. I do not, apparently.
I remember it took like a year for me to figure out like where to print stuff at my school. This is ridiculous. I could have learned this in a first year class. Awesome. Well, okay, so I'll ask one more question. We'll try to pick an easy one here. Let's see. Got a list here I'm looking at. Okay, well, when you transferred in, did you live in the dorms or did you find housing? Did you find roommates to find housing in the area? How did you go about that? Or what would you recommend doing?
So I'll hop on this one. For my first year, I lived at the Art Center building, which is our dorms on campus with kitchens, and it's like apartment style. So you have a door to close and a bedroom and stuff. And for one, just right off the bat, I totally recommend it, at least for your first year while you're like getting around CCS and trying to like find your way through the buildings. If you can get housing, it's delightful because you don't have to worry about commute time. You can just kind of like go and explore. And there's a various stuff on campus that's like 24 hours. So being able to like really utilize that stuff without having worrying about commute or having a change of clothes or stuff like that. So I would totally recommend it. My first year, it was entertaining. We were like our own little sitcom, me and my roommates, because I was the transfer student animation kid, and then there was two guys straight out of high school who were a fashion major and an illustration major, and then our last roommate was a 30-year-old Taiwanese man who was a transportation master's student.
Wow.
So we had like a little bit of everything going on.
Fletch, did we have the same first year roommates? What?
Yeah.
This is how we try to arrange it.
Yeah.
Try to give you a sitcom experience.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I had like, there was a high mix, but honestly, it was great. I honestly suggest at least 1 year of getting that roommate experience. I only lived on campus for 1 year. Now I'm a commuter. And next year I'm hoping to be an RA, but I really recommend it. That's kind of the fastest way to meet people on campus is like through your roommates or just other people in your building. Honestly, my building, through a series of unfortunate events, had several fire alarms at the beginning of the year, and so we all became friends outside on the lawn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I honestly can't recommend it enough. Being able to just meet and live with the other people on campus is really a cool experience, at least for your first year.
Yeah. Nothing brings people together like a 4 a.m. fire alarm that everybody's very upset about.
I would agree with what Fletch said. I stayed a commuter. I lived very close to CCS, like 15 minutes. So I was very lucky to be able to commute and save that money of having to, pay for housing and all that stuff. But there was probably not a day that went by while I was there that I'm like, man, I wish I just lived across campus or whatever. Cause like I was taking like, I mean, I had a major and a minor, so I stayed with a pretty like heavy workload my whole time there. And especially like my junior and senior year, like I would be there by like 8 9 a.m for like the morning classes, and I would be there all day until like 10:30 when my last class ended. And then like especially my senior year, there was a lot of times that I would be like, I'm staying here for like as long as I can, and then like when I want to sleep, I'm gonna drive home and go to sleep. And thankfully it wasn't like terribly far or anything like that to where it's dangerous. But that, and on like especially during winter, having so many days where it's like, oh god, like I wish I just could walk across campus and be in my class instead of like, all right, I gotta get up, I gotta warm up my car, gotta shovel like everything out. So yeah, there's definitely like everything, pros and cons
Yeah.
to both. But yeah.
And if you do need to live at home to save money, like you definitely can if it's within a commuting distance. But I would also really recommend still getting the meal plan, just because that takes another thing off of your plate. That just like eats up so much time, especially like your first year. I wish I had done that, and I didn't do that. I was stupid. I commuted and made my own food, which was
I was the
extra
same
dumb.
way.
Yeah.
And we also have like 24-hour markets on campus, and the convenience
nice.
of not having to worry about if you have money on your card
Mhm.
when you just have meal plan money and being able to use that on your ID. Oh, it's so good.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I'm in favor of housing because I am an RA. I have been in housing all 3 years I've been here. I've enjoyed it. I've lucked out on the roommates situations as a whole, I would say. I'm in the TC, so it's the more traditional dorm style housing. So we don't have a kitchen, but you would be surprised what you can accomplish with a rice cooker, an air fryer, and a microwave. But like it's a really great way to meet people. Everything's really close by. Plus,
I mean, it's such a cool area too.
yeah. Plus, if your family is anything like mine, they were worried about me going to school in Detroit. You hear things about Detroit. Is this part of Detroit scary? No. This is chill. Midtown's great.
It's so nice. Like
it is so nice.
Yeah, I'm not from Detroit, so I too was like, oh, I don't know. I've always heard things. I'm like, was RoboCop going to be here? And then I'm just like, no, this is great.
RoboCop's your friend. Excuse me. But like my parents, my first year were like, "You are living on campus. You are living on campus. We have to make that happen," because they were worried. And I just haven't left because it's nice and convenient, and honestly, price of housing decently competitive with housing around here. So.
Yeah, so I'm a commuter right now, but I got a studio apartment that's actually across the street from the TC. Like I can look at the TC out my window right now.
Nice.
And it's about the same as CCS housing, but just kind of tacking on about how great the area is. I walk everywhere. Like I have a dog, so I explore and I go and do the stuff and things. This area is delightful, especially if you live right next to the school. If you live at like TC campus, you have like Sapino's Pizza and Joe Louis. I would kill a man for Joe Louis bacon, just saying. And then like the other campus, you're right next to the DIA. So if you're living at the ACB and you're like, you got Saturday off or Sunday off, you just roll over to one of the greatest art museums in the country.
So good.
Get the Italian sandwich from the cafe. Oh, anyway, it's great. But yeah, that whole area, it's honestly delightful.
Yeah, we have a lot of museums in this area. They're all really cool.
Yeah,
I work at the Science Center. It's great. Great place. Fun time.
That, and I don't know if it's still there or not, but the Red Bull House of Art was like one of my favorite things to do, which is like not walking distance, but still like Metro Detroit. And it's so cool. Especially because it is so close to like CCS. So like when you go to like the openings and stuff, you're just hanging out with like all your friends and like other CCS people, and it's always a cool time. But yeah, I feel like that is for sure like one of the things I miss the most, of like, oh yeah, I'm on my lunch break, like I have time before my next class starts, I'm just gonna go to the DIA for like half an hour and walk around or like whatever, and then just like it's literally right across the street.
Yeah,
it's free too for students. Yeah.
Yep, that and the Detroit library is gorgeous. Like it is, I can't recommend it enough. Even if you just go to walk around, like it's such a beautiful building.
Wayne State is also like right there, so we actually do have access to green space even in the middle of Detroit.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you all did great. So I don't know if there's no more questions, we can wrap up here.
Actually, I have a question if you don't
mind. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So, I relate to a lot of your stories, especially yours, Beck. I was studying mechanical engineering and physics at the Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. So my entire education has been very, very STEM focused. And probably about a year ago, I would never have imagined myself going to art school. So what I'm kind of wondering is, from all of you, what are like the major differences, the culture shock, for lack of a better term, in say the like academic structure, the student culture, uh, and how did you kind of get used to it?
Mhm.
Good question.
I'm,
Really good question.
I'm gonna hop on this one.
Yeah.
Just to kick it off. For starters, one of my best friends in animation, his name is Jordan Guevara, and he's going to be one of the greatest animators of all time. I can feel it. When he got here, he's a transfer student like me or like us, and he was studying, I think, business before until he was talking to someone. They
Wasn't
were
it
like,
journalism?
What?
Wasn't it
Oh,
journalism?
journalism. Yeah, that's right. It was journalism.
I also know Jordan, so.
Yeah, yeah. And when he started, he wasn't quite as good at drawing as some of the rest of us. He was good enough for like the portfolio and to get in and stuff, but he knew that he was starting a little behind. And the man caught up and surpassed so fast. So like, if you're willing to apply yourself, for one, you can absolutely like that part is not too terrible of like an adjustment, because my buddy Jordan is now a better drawer than I am. I've been drawing for years. But as far as like student culture, for me, I am a really big movie buff, but I still had a little trouble at first connecting with some of like the more artsy students, because coming from community college and just a more standard college, being surrounded by like law majors and engineers, and I come from a family of engineers, so it took me a second to adjust. My biggest advice in getting used to the student body is it's kind of a give and take. So before CCS, I didn't really watch like a lot of anime, and I didn't there are certain games that I didn't play, and it wasn't because I didn't want to, I just never thought to. So kind of opening my horizons to newer stuff so that I could connect with the people around me definitely is part of what got me in. And coincidentally, it's helped my animation a lot, just getting into some of these more specific arts that I just hadn't paid attention to. So I don't know if that answers your question. Big thing is just kind of like getting interested in some of the other stuff.
Yeah, I'd say that answers it. Though I am wondering now, does it work the other way around? Are there people, even though this is an art school, who are interested in STEM topics and talk about them?
Absolutely.
Most people get mad at me.
Yeah.
Because like I'm still a very STEM geared person. I love it. I didn't go to Michigan Tech for no reason. It just didn't pan out that way. And but like if you do love it, then that's what makes you you. And I think what really makes an art student is embracing what you love. I animate really weirdly, apparently, according to everybody. I animate, honestly, I would say the way because of how I think, and I think like an engineer. That's just how it works. And so I'm applying like physics and all of that stuff to my animation. It works really well for me. I have a pretty unique style because of it. But everybody else is like, that's so weird. And if I start explaining it, they'll be like, nah, stop. But there are people who are interested in that. Like you'll find a lot of people in game who are super interested in like physics and programming and all of that stuff. And like transportation design, I would say, are the mechanical engineers of CCS, like product design, like all of those people definitely have those
Yeah, product
directions.
design is my intended major.
Yeah, you'll find a lot more people like that over there.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was very much my experience again as well. Like I was not like ever the gifted art kid. I like kind of stumbled into it. I mean, like I was always drawing, like I'm sure most of us, just like doodling when we are kids and like stuff like that. But I was always very focused on music, so like still the arts, but like very different. And for the majority of my life, that's all I wanted to do. And then I, through a very weird series of events, ended up doing this because as I said, like I was like in psychology and like I was like, okay, like I need like a real job and like I want something that I can do that's like practical or whatever. Um, and also something that I'm very interested in. And then it like got to a point of like, okay, like I'm in these like high level math classes and also just having to fill electives and stuff. And I was like, whatever, like I've always drawn, but all of my high school electives were filled with band classes. So I never really like I took like one or two high school art classes. But that's like the cool thing about CCS is that like there are people from all over the world like in every department, and like every single one of us like has completely different like stories on why we want to do this, or like our uh other hobbies and interests and inspirations. And like both of you said already, like just taking in as much of
Mhm.
that as you can is like so cool and like so beneficial. And being opened up to things that it's like, oh, I know whatever this is exists, but like I've never looked into it. Like whether that's like an entire genre of like film or media or whatever,
Mhm.
or like a different medium even. And like even within like the illustration department, like there are like everyone like all of my friends wanted completely different things. And yeah, it is, again, like for me, like at least so different from community college, where it's like, okay, there's like one or two of us like that are like, okay, like I want to do this like professionally, and how do I get there? uh Whereas like you might be with like, oh, there's like a retiree that's taking a drawing class just for fun, and like that's cool. And same thing, you're getting like so many different like uh
Mhm.
lived experiences and stuff, and like that's great. But then when you like take all of those different experiences and like some of my best friends were like veterans in like the Navy and Army and stuff like that that ended up at CCS. And like um but again, just like everyone has such drastically different backgrounds and aspirations, and uh but you're all there for very similar goals at the same
Yeah.
time of like wanting to turn this thing that we all love doing, just like creating or making things, and how
Mhm.
can we be like the best that we possibly can at it.
Yeah.
um
I wanted to
yeah.
I wanted to say something because like and again I often say this to students, just I don't know why this always comes up in conversation, but maybe because they always resonate with me on the topic of mental health. I've noticed that going to CCS, it was like, oh, people are open about their mental health. They're
Mm.
accepting, like, oh,
Yeah.
you're bipolar
Mhm.
too. Oh, I guess we're in good company. And just like resonating with each other without fear of judgment, being
Hmm.
able to talk about those things. I came from a very white conservative area, very religious area of West Michigan. And it was like diverse in every, like in different capacities here in Detroit and at CCS with cultures and religions and just walks of life, sexual identities, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, this is not even the art side of it, but just like
Hmm.
walks of life. It
Mhm.
was so different. And I'm glad I didn't stay in narrow minded West Michigan. It's good for some people, but I think as artists, you need to be exposed and come in contact with other people just for the sake of being a good person
Mhm.
too. But yeah, the mental health thing was great. And I also noticed, and then I know we'll wrap up here in a second, but I loved how different, like it was great making friends with people of different majors. Cause like I was like, I'm a photographer. I think of things and problem solve in very, I guess, fine art ways. But then design based majors, it's like, how are you so like Sam, you're talking about product design. Like, how do you people problem solve and like how this
Mm.
innovation, like this innovative way that you think is so cool to me. And just having friends of different majors, drawing inspiration from them and just how they
Mhm.
it's so great. Just yes, make friends from different majors for sure.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
one
Absolutely.
thing, for the sake of having friends and just knowing different people, and also for the sake of networking too, because like I think Cody, you were saying it's a small world, like everybody knows everybody, and you want to be on good terms. You want to be the one that they refer you to in the real world.
Exactly. Yeah, and like you don't know where any of us are gonna end up. And like I have friends that are like art directors for like design firms and stuff now, and like just like the coolest stuff in like drastically different things. Like someone I graduated with is like really big in like the fashion world and everything. Like it's just like some of the coolest stuff to continue to see. Like, oh yeah, I had like a class with this person like my freshman year, and now you're seeing like, oh my god, they're a big deal now. Like this is crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't be intimidated by anybody. Like, I think like be your true self while you're here, because we all are going to learn from each other. I'm just echoing what everybody else said, but that was like my experience as well. It's just like, yeah, don't be afraid to be yourself and talk about the things you're into, because we're all like, I think pretty open-minded and very inquisitive people as artists. So we love to learn.
Yeah. The culture shock never really ends. The trick is learning to embrace the culture shock.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of just life too. As you get out of whatever school you're in now, even after you get out of CCS, just I've found, because like working down in Disney, just everywhere you go, it's different. So
Yeah.
it's just a bit of an adjustment.
Mhm.
Big thing I've learned from CCS though, in regards to that, you were just saying like do what you love and you'll be fine. That's kind of the thing. So just like whatever you love, just love it entirely, and the people who also like it will just flock to you. And like CCS makes it really really easy to, if there isn't a group that you want to join, they make it really easy to make a group. So like I know Beck is just made a swim club, a swim team, swim club, and I'm the president of the weightlifting club here on campus. And it was so easy. I was given this responsibility through merit of a high five and some. So
it is very easy. I did the same thing when I was there. I started a like sketch club for a bunch of us illustration nerds, that we would like bring in our own props and costumes and stuff and set up like this like atelier style like drawing room, and be able to just like take cool photo reference of ourselves and our friends, and have like figure drawing sessions outside of like our figure drawing classes. And it is incredibly easy to like set up clubs and stuff.
And these groups like vary wildly because it's just something as
Yeah.
I don't know, serious, I guess, feeling as like the transfer student club, and to like something as silly seeming as like there's a Just Dance club.
Yeah.
Like,
there's
like you'll find your
there was
people.
like a
You will
Smash
find your
Bros
people.
club and like all kinds of stuff. Like it's incredibly cool. And again, if you don't see the things that you want to be a part of, do it. Like
There's a lot
they
of people
make it
here.
so easy, and you know, chances are if you're interested in it, I guarantee you someone else is too. And they just haven't done it themselves or something.
This is all super great feedback. So we will end it here since we are over the 7 o'clock time end period. But yeah, everyone, I don't know, like if you guys have something you want anybody to check out, go ahead and plug it. Like if you have an Instagram or a website, feel free to plug it.
For sure. I'll drop my links in there. For me personally, when I know I might be repeating myself a little bit, but when I'm not working in animation or freelance design, I started a mentorship program. I just dropped the link for that into the chat here, where I teach background design and paint for TV animation. It's called Coven of the Arts. I've been doing it for I call like our session seasons. So currently about to wrap up our 6th season already, which is crazy. And I've had the absolute honor of working with, I think, 30 different students from literally all around the world at this point. And some of my students have gone on to work at like Nickelodeon and Bento Box and a lot of cool stuff. And yeah, I love doing it. So if you're interested in animation or background design for animation, please feel free to check it out. And tell all your friends too, because I'd love to keep doing it.
Cody, can you drop that link in the chat again? Because I think
Oh,
I
yes.
shared it. I shared it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah,
I just saw that.
it happens. I always accidentally direct
go.
message people.
I don't know why
Yeah,
it was
why
like
don't I do
just
this?
auto set to that.
Awesome.
There it is, just in case. But
Well,
yeah.
thank you everyone. This was great. This was a great convo. We'll have it recorded and we'll share it with some other students too who didn't get to attend the event. But thank you so much. Okay, have a good night. And then yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll real quick put my link in the chat as well.